What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports, back again with another one. First of all, happy Easter to you all. And I hope you guys had a wonderful Good Friday. Let's talk about the welterweight division. I got two words for you. Unification, domination by the WBC, IBF, welterweight champion, Errol the Truth Spence, a.k.a. Free Smoke, as he got a TKO. You gotta love TKO over Yordenis Ugas, who came into the ring with the WBA welterweight title. Another strap. As you know, Errol Spence Jr. has said this is strap season, and he had collected another belt, as he's a 3-belt holder at 147 pounds. Well, in the first round, it started off as a chess match. Very, very, very high-level chess match, as both guys were trying to see what they can set up, laying traps for each other. They both was trying to implement the game plan that they had worked on throughout training camp. And I gave a slight edge to Errol Spence Jr. I thought he was just a busier fighter. The volume puncher, which is his calling card, came into play in the first round. He was able to, in my opinion, eke out that first round. That first round was very close. It could have went either way. I scored it for Errol Spence Jr. off of pure activity. The second round, give Ugas his credit. This was his one shining moment. Remember that one shining moment they do at the end of the NCAA basketball tournament? That was his one shining moment, second round. I thought he won the second round. He was able to counter Errol Spence Jr. I thought he was able to limit Errol Spence Jr.'s jab. And I thought he was able to fight the fight that he wanted to fight. Fight the fight at the pace that he wanted to fight. And I thought he was able to do a lot of good things. And it kind of reminded me of what he was doing in the Manny Pacquiao fight. You know, going into this fight, I was like, okay, he's basically fighting a southpaw just like he fought in his last fight against Pacquiao. Even though he was a late replacement, it was a fight that he took on and he was able to win, beat the Filipino icon, soon to be Hall of Famer, in Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. I thought that would pay dividends in this fight. You know, you're going from one southpaw to another southpaw in back-to-back fights. It ain't like you're going from one southpaw in this fight, and next fight you fight an orthodox fighter. He's fighting a similar fighter, but Manny Pacquiao is reckless. He's offensive-minded. He's got a lot of holes in his defense, and that led to a patient fighter in Yordenis Ugas is finding his spots with the chopping right hand and straight right hands. He was able to beat a guy that, in my opinion, was past his best. Wasn't the same Manny Pacquiao. Even in his last fight against Keith Thurman, which was probably, what, 2 years ago, going into the Yordenis Ugas fight, he was able to take advantage of that situation and become the WBA or welterweight champion. You fighting a guy from the southpaw stance, same stance, but much different. A guy that's patient, a guy that's more accurate, a guy that's a much bigger fighter. As Manny Pacquiao, just like Floyd Mayweather Jr., you fighting at a weight class that you probably shouldn't be fighting at, but you so good, you so talented, you able to get away with it. You weren't able to get away with it against a guy that's a natural, strong. Actually, a guy that, in my opinion, needs to be moving up in the near future. But a guy that's much bigger and much more patient and much more versatile. And at this stage, a much better fighter in Errol Spence Jr. As we went to the third round, Errol Spence Jr. said what he told everybody he was going to do. I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I'm going to try to box this guy. And if I can win this fight comfortably on the outside with the jab, cool, I'll do that. But if I got to go to the water with this guy, if he bringing something to the table that can kind of stifle that style of fighting, I'll go to war with him. I'll go toe-to-toe with him, and I'll ultimately stop him. That's exactly what happened last night at AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. As he started coming forward, started jabbing to the body, jabbing up top, putting the pressure on him. As Ugas, in my opinion, went into the high guard, which brought nothing offensively from his repertoire, Errol Spence Jr. was able to tee off on him. Go to the body, come around the high guard, hitting him on the ear, and making him pay for being non-existent on the offensive end. And Errol Spence Jr. is a good fighter. You know, he's the Tim Duncan of the welterweight division. He doesn't do anything great outside of his jab, but he does everything very good. He's going to be hard to beat. And if you can't match his volume of punches, and I don't think nobody in the welterweight division can match his volume of punches outside of Shawn Porter. And Shawn Porter's retired now. Now, we talk about a potential matchup with Terrence Bud Crawford. Terrence Bud Crawford is, in my opinion, got the highest boxing IQ since Floyd Mayweather Jr. He will make the adjustment, but he's a guy that's looking to land precise, accurate shots, and that could play into the hands of a guy that's throwing a lot of shots, being much more busier. So it's going to boil down to, can Terrence Crawford hurt Errol Spence Jr.? Can he hit him with some shots to either stifle his offense or either hurt him and get him out of there? That's what it's going to boil down to. It's going to be a much intriguing matchup, and I'm much looking forward to it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what transpires. But as the fight went on past round 3, it was all Errol Spence Jr. It was the Errol Spence Jr. show, as he was able to pretty much beat a guy that was looking to land one shot, and he was just outworking him, and he was just punishing him, not only to the head, but to the body, and he was just putting him on the back foot. I told you guys in the prediction video, if he backs up, Ugas is over. Ugas can't fight off the back foot. Ugas is a guy that's a very solid fighter, a very fundamentally sound fighter, but he's flat-footed. He's not an athletic fighter like a Crawford, even a Shawn Porter. So he's kind of a guy that fights one way, and if you solve that puzzle, you got him dead to right. And that's exactly what happened in the Errol Spence Jr. fight. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. When you looked at the fight, when it first started off, Ugas was a much bigger fighter. I was surprised how big Ugas was. I was like, damn, Ugas is much bigger than Errol Spence Jr. Ugas looked like a middleweight last night. You know, as both guys came in below the 147-pound limit in the weigh-in before the fight. Both guys came in at 146 pounds. I think Errol Spence Jr. came in at 146 and 1/4, and I think Ugas came in at 146 and 3/4. But when they rehydrated for the next day and for the fight to take place the next night, Ugas looked like he was well, at least 160 pounds above. He looked like a middleweight. And Errol Spence Jr., he looked like a junior middleweight. So you can see the size difference. But just like in the Kell Brook fight, where Kell Brook looked like a middleweight going into that fight, Errol Spence Jr. was able to punish, dismantle, dissect, and ultimately beat into submission and make the doctor make that call and stop the fight. When I was watching this fight, I was at Twin Peaks Sports Bar. Boy, it was an electric atmosphere at that fight, at that sports bar, man, ladies and gentlemen. Errol Spence Jr., in my opinion, is probably, I'm talking about just in the United States, he's probably the 3rd biggest draw here in the United States. Only person I put ahead of him is obviously Canelo Alvarez and Deontay Wilder / Tyson Fury. That's probably the only time where I was in a sports bar where I would usually go into Twin Peaks to watch the fight, where the atmosphere was more electric than it was last night. It was just an electric atmosphere. You know, they fought on Easter weekend, so they probably added to the situation as people were moving around, out and about, you know, going out. A lot of people were off Good Friday, so people were enjoying themselves. This is one of the, you know, prime holidays during the year. You know, you got a lot of people traveling and stuff. A lot of people going out of town to link up with their families and friends. So this was just a prime weekend. I just give PBC, led by Al Heyman, props for putting this fight on Easter weekend. But as far as Errol the True Spence Jr., this guy is a great fighter. He showed that he's the Errol Spence Jr. old. People was waiting on that. People was like, okay, well, he beat Mikey Garcia, but he couldn't stop a guy coming up from a weight class. They like to say 2 weight class, but nah, he came up from 1 weight class. A lot of people say, oh, he came up from 135 pounds. Wrong. He ain't come from 135 pounds. He fought Sergey Lipinets. That was at 140 pounds. He came up 1 weight class, and he was an undefeated fighter, and he was a guy that was on the top 5 of the pound-for-pound list. Give Errol Spence Jr. his credit for beating a guy like that. We gonna give Floyd Mayweather Jr. credit for dissecting and whitewashing Juan Manuel Marquez. We got to give Errol Spence Jr. the same credit for whitewashing and dominating Mikey Garcia. You know, after that, he fought Shawn Porter, and he got into a toe-to-toe phone whoop battle with Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter make you do that sometime, and I think Errol Spence Jr. mindset and Shawn Porter fighting style, I just thought it landed. It was just a good mix, and it led to a very entertaining fight. Errol Spence Jr. was able to come out on top. A lot of people look at that performance and say, man, he ain't the same guy. He getting hit a lot. He not fighting off the back foot like he did in the Mikey Garcia fight. His defense is more vulnerable than it has been in the past. Now he just chose to fight Shawn Porter that way. See, Errol Spence Jr. is a smart fighter. If he'd have tried to fight Shawn Porter off the back foot, jab, and got the high guard up, when Shawn Porter throws his punches like he did with Mikey Garcia, Shawn Porter would have probably outworked him, and Shawn Porter probably would have won a competitive decision because he was just throwing more punches. When you're in the high guard, Shawn Porter's punching. He punching. You in the high guard, I'm going to the bottom, I'm going up top, I'm going around the high guard, and I'm chopping you down. And I'm hitting you with shots on the side of the head, and I'm hitting you with shots on the ear. That's exactly what Shawn Porter was going to do. Errol Spence Jr. knew this and said, I can't fight like that. I can't fight like I fought against Mikey Garcia. I got to go to war with this dude. I got to show him that I'm better at this type of game than he is. He think he the king of this type of toe-to-toe, rough, rugged, grimy type of fight. I'm going to let him know that, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. I'm going to beat him at his own game. That's exactly what Errol Spence Jr. did. Now, when he fought Danny Garcia, he didn't fight that same way. He basically fought that fight off the jab. He was able to keep Danny Garcia, who was guys not as active as Shawn Porter, is not as aggressive as Shawn Porter, is a pure counterpuncher. Okay, I can go back to fighting you like I fought Mikey Garcia. You in the same mode as a Mikey Garcia. You're a patient fighter. You looking to counter. You're not aggressive. You're not throwing a lot of punches per round. You're looking to land accurate punches per round, and I can fight you on the outside. Against Shawn Porter, I can't do that because he's throwing punches. He ain't worried about if a punch lands, if a punch don't land. I'm just going to outwork you. I'm going to throw 400-500 punches in 12-round fight, and I know I'm going to land in the 200s, and if you're throwing 300-400 punches per round, I'm just going to outland you. And we look at the CompuBox score, it's going to say, damn, Shawn Porter just outworked them and outlanded them. And if it's a close fight in close rounds, then it's a chance that Shawn Porter can get the decision. Even Shawn Porter lose, he can say, well, I got robbed. You know what I'm saying? So just like he said, he felt he won the Keith Thurman fight. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But a great fight, great matchup. Hopefully we get the fights that everybody has been waiting for, and that is Errol Spence Jr. taking on Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford tweeted out right after the fight that he's looking forward to taking the belts from Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. said, look here, in a post-fight press conference, I told you guys this from the get-go, from day one. I don't know what's going on with these Terence Crawford fanboys. They've been talking like Errol Spence Jr. is ducking the smoke with Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford has been steadfast in stating that, look, let me clean up my side of the street. Once I clean up my side of the street, I'm going to come see you. I'm going to come see you. And we're going to do it for all the marbles. It made no damn sense, excuse my language, on this Easter Sunday. It made no sense to fight you for 2 belts or even 3 belts, and then you still got 1 more belt out there. What sense that make? Let me fight you for all the marbles. This is going to be the biggest fight in 2022, and we will see what happens. We will see what transpires. It's going to be a great matchup, great stylistic matchup. A lot of people saying, well, damn, excuse my language again, Terence Crawford dismantled and stopped Shawn Porter. Errol Spence Jr. went to war with Shawn Porter in a close competitive decision win. But it's all about styles make fights. Look at what Ali and Frazier did. Them guys fought 3 times, and they was 3 epic fights. Frazier gave Muhammad Ali all he can handle. Frazier went in there against George Foreman and got destroyed. Got his hat brought to him. Got taken behind the woodshed. And then you say, well, damn, he did Joe Frazier like that, and Ali struggled with Joe Frazier. George Foreman going to destroy Muhammad Ali. Styles make fight. George Foreman got in there with Muhammad Ali, a boxer, a guy that ain't going to be defensively irresponsible, a guy that's going to be smart, a guy that's going to use the jab, a guy that's going to use his height, a guy that's got a good chin, a guy that ain't going to get knocked down and run right back in there and go toe-to-toe like Joe Frazier did. That's why he got knocked down 6-7 times in that first fight with Foreman. Ali not going to do that. He's a smart fighter. He was able to use the old rope-a-dope and let George Foreman tire himself out. George Foreman hit Ali with some hellacious shots, but Ali had one of the best chins in boxing. He could not knock down Ali, and Ali was able to withstand that storm. And Ali was able to pot shot him from the outside, hit him with straight right hands, hit him with straight left hands, and just fight a beautiful fight. And he was able to withstand the body punishment that George Foreman brought to him. George Foreman withered because he was used to guys that he hit and hit again after 2 or 3 rounds, getting knocked out. Ali was right there going toe-to-toe with him. Not going toe-to-toe with him, but going punch for punch with him. George Foreman did not know how to handle that, and Ali was able to catch him with a shot when he was tied and ultimately knock him out in the 8th round. So that's where we'll see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Bud Crawford. That's the fight to make. I'm hearing people on YouTube this morning saying that the fight would do 1 million pay-per-view buys. Let's sell it down. That fight ain't doing no million pay-per-view buys. Let's go for 500,000. 500,000 pay-per-view buys is what I expect the fight to do. I think it's a great matchup. See, what you got to understand, in these times in boxing, you got so much streaming going on and illegal streaming going on. Ain't no more $1 million pay-per-views. Unless you talking about Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. did, what, $1 million again with Logan Paul. Outside of that, not even Canelo Alvarez doing 1 million pay-per-view buys. As now he's fighting on an app in the zone. But even when he fought Caleb Plant, what that fight did, what that fight did, like 800,000, 850,000, somewhere in there, somewhere between 700 and 800,000 pay-per-view buys. They didn't even do 1 million. So I think long gone are the days of boxing pay-per-views doing 1 million buys. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's going to happen anymore. But I think this fight is the biggest fight to be made in the sport of boxing, along with Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. But Anthony Joshua's got the first get by Alexander Usyk, and that remains to be seen if that's the case. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts about Errol the Truth Spence and Nothing But the Truth. Dismantling, dissecting, punishing, being the Errol Spence Jr. of old. The Errol Spence Jr. that stopped Chris Algieri. The Errol Spence Jr. that stopped Lamar Peterson. The Errol Spence Jr. that knocked Bundu through the ropes right after the Olympic men's gold medal basketball team won that medal. The Errol Spence Jr. that knocked out El Campo. You saw him live in living color last night. And if that's the case, we're looking at a 50-50 fight between himself and Terrence the Bud Crawford, who is a guy that's a switch hitter, a guy that got power in both hands. But he's going to definitely have to get some respect for Errol Spence Jr., hurt him and make him not be as aggressive. If he's not able to do that or knock him out, then Errol Spence Jr. is going to be able to outwork him and throw more punches, more volume punches, and basically beat him down, punish him, and maybe either a late stoppage or a unanimous decision win for Errol the Truth Spence. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts about this particular matchup last night between Errol the Truth Spence versus Yordenis Ugas. How you grade his performance? Do you give it an A? Do you give it a B, C, D? You know what damn way you can give him an F. And let me know your thoughts about Errol Spence Jr. taking on Terrence Crawford. Who you like in that particular matchup? And give me the reasons. The reasons that we're here. The reasons that we'll make it last forever. And give me the reasons why you like either Crawford or Spence in this particular matchup. Let me know your thoughts. Follow me on Twitter, JB Sports 3303. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports. The man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.